Hi and welcome back to my channel. Today this is not a book video but a commentary on certain things that have been in the media recently. I will apologise. I do think we might get a special guest appearance from Peggy. She is doing her rounds at the moment. Recently there's been a lot in the media about sex education and the age appropriateness of sex education and what we should be teaching kids and what we shouldn't be teaching kids. The thing is, I've taught in further education, for a few years, and I taught healthcare sciences. Most of my students wanted to go into some form of healthcare professional, whether that be nursing, midwifery, things along those lines, OT, many other, including medicine actually. Now, one of the units I used to have to teach was actual sexual health and reproduction. We talked about everything from hydrocele to female genital mutilation. Now, what surprised me the most when I was teaching that, bearing in mind most of my students were 16 plus, none of them were under 16, some of them were actually in the 20s and 30s, how little they knew about reproductive care, reproductive health, even down to some of the most basic things. Now, I have got a couple of little stories to tell you of things that students said and things that I heard. And yes, they are quite shocking. But it just seems that it's not necessarily about teaching them about go have sex, have fun. You know what I mean? It's not about that. You can do it in the most scientific manner. You can do it to literally the biology diagrams and the biological inferences. Even in Bridgerton, if anyone's watched it yet, sorry, I am a bit of a fan of the Bridgerton series. There's a brilliant line where one of the Featherington family and the Lady Featherington is trying to get information about her daughter's potential to have an heir in the near future, and one of them actually asks, inserts himself where? And it just one of those lines that I burst out laughing, because you think, like, basic information. Yes, back then people didn't talk about it, but now in society where people can get information, and a lot of it comes from social media and things that have been shared by other people, it's the amount of misinformation that worries me. Now, I'm not expecting things to be easy for everybody. I remember as a child awkward conversations with mother, and thankfully I still am a book person, so I was given a book on puberty and basic sexual information, but it was done in an age appropriate manner. It meant I had the information in the future to be a bit sensible about things. Now, 3 particular things that come to mind, well, technically 4. It's not just girls that need to know this information. In America at the moment, there is a big thing about reproductive rights and abortion rights and things like that. And the men in the Senate who genuinely have no clue about women's biology. Some of them still believe that everything comes out of one hole. It doesn't. Teach your sons, teach your daughters. It's not about teaching them to be promiscuous. It's about giving them facts and information that will help them in the future. Now, yes, not every child can handle everything. I'm not expecting you to go into great depths of detail, but give them the knowledge to protect themselves. For a start, if a child is being abused, they may not understand what is going on. Give them the tools to protect themselves, to come forward and know what is right and what is wrong. The other thing is, when they get older and they do start to experiment, which I hate to say it, kids do, give them the tools to keep themselves safe. And I'm not just talking about pregnancy, I'm talking about STDs. First story. Almost 17-year-old student who wanted to go become a midwife told me as a fact that if a female washes herself out with 7-Up or Sprite after intercourse, she will not get pregnant and she will not get an STD. I took a minute, I breathed, I thought I have to be diplomatic here. I did make a joke about, please tell me you haven't tried that, and then swiftly moved on because of the look on the student's face. Now, that will not protect her against STDs. It will not protect her against pregnancy. This information came from the internet. Second story is a student who told me about something. We were talking about cervical smear tests, and there was something about the look on her face that I was a bit like, do you not know what this is? This is another student, about 17-year-old. And she had been told by an older cousin that the nurse will put their hand inside with a scalpel and cut a section of their cervix out for testing. No wonder this kid was horrified and did not want to know anything about testing or going to the doctor for things like this. It is not a full hand. They use something called a speculum just to keep the walls away so they can get in. And it's a very, very fine, bit like the swabs that we used for COVID tests, that just used to rub against the side. It takes longer for the patient to take off their underwear and get on the bed than it does for the entire test itself. It's not, it shouldn't be painful. It can be for some patients depending on various medical conditions, but the vast majority of women find it painless. A little bit embarrassing, but as I said, the nurse has probably seen more ladies' bits than you've had dinners. It's nothing to be embarrassed about. It's a medical procedure. Now, the third one was something that was mentioned, although thankfully this student did know it was not a thing. And I didn't believe her at first. I was like, no, it's surely not. This is ridiculous. But being the person that I am, I went and looked this up. And, oh, hello, Peggy. So you can all say hi to Peggy. Say hi, Peggy. Go on, down you go. Something called soaking. This is something that's come across from America, which generally doesn't surprise me partly, wherein the male will enter the female and lie still, and they will get a friend to jump up and down on the bed next to them to create the friction. Because they are not moving, they are just soaking inside the female. It doesn't count as sex and they won't get pregnant. I genuinely was horrified to find out this was a real thing on multiple levels. First of all, male entering female, well, in this case anyway, obviously there are other kinds of sex as well. It's sex, whether they move or not. Secondly, how could they not know that that could cause pregnancy? Lack of education. Finally, this is a slightly more weird one. How could you have somebody in the room when you're doing that and jumping up and down? No, just firstly, no. Now, what worries me is that was something that was started in a particular religious part of America with a particular religious group. My concern was because of how, I don't want to say restrictive, strict these communities are. If the female was to become pregnant, she would be ostracized from her family, her community. She would be thrown out. She would have nothing. Now, if that trend started to make its way over here, and this was a couple of years ago, so the chance possibly has, I really, really hope not. How many kids are going to be in that position where they are going to be parents because they didn't have the knowledge or the reason to study or look up things? They will take what is said on the internet as truth. Give your kids the knowledge to protect themselves. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with kids who do fall pregnant and decide to keep them and have kids and whatever. That will happen. And in some cases, yes, it may be very, very difficult for them. But accidents happen. Condom split. Pill fails. You have some medications interact with the pill and things like that. It happens. STDs. One thing I did always say to my students is, if you're going to get wet, put on a raincoat. And that goes for all my students. I used to say that. Kids are going to explore. Kids are going to make mistakes. Arm them with knowledge. Give them the information to make educated decisions. Give them the information to not be embarrassed about going to the doctors or if there is something wrong. It's the same with FGM. Don't leave it just to the girls. Don't leave it to one part of society when it could be, it's everybody's problem. Why lads think that girls can just hold in their periods like they do when it's just wait till you go to the toilet. It doesn't work like that. Why do they not know this basic information? How are they going to be good partners, fathers, brothers, uncles, if the kids don't understand what's going on? So all children should have basic knowledge. I don't know if it's necessarily the school's responsibility, and I know a lot of parents, it can be very embarrassing for them. If you can't face doing it yourself, if your child is a reader, get them a book. There are books available for all age groups. Talk to them. Explain it in a biology, clinical sense. It doesn't have to be just your words. Get information up on the internet. Show them how to find out. If you think your kids are going to be sexually active, go and buy a box of condoms. Get them at the supermarket where the people behind the counter don't even notice what they're dinging across the belt, yeah? Kids need adults to protect them. One way we can do that is by giving them information and allowing them, yes, again, it's not going to stop all mistakes. When mistakes happen, it's how it's dealt with. If that child thinks they can come to you and say, Mom, Dad, I need to go to the doctors, or I think this might be happening. Again, brilliant. Take them. Go. Support them. It's the same with if a girl was to become pregnant. I am a firm believer in choice. It's not everybody's religion, emotional ability to consider things like abortion. If a kid doesn't want to do that, discuss it with them. Don't lay down the law to them, because they will push back further. But please, whatever you do, give them the information. We don't want people thinking that 7-Up or Sprite's going to stop the pregnancy, or, I mean, where the thing with the smear test, where on earth did the hand with a scalpel? I mean, the mind boggles. As for the soaking thing, I'm probably going to guarantee that there'll be other similar things floating about over the next couple of years. Have a kid who can turn around and say, what a load of shite. Yeah, it happens. But give them that ability. Just give them the strength and the support that they need. But above all, knowledge.